Welcome to PIB News Podcast for Civil Services. Cabinet approves India's updated nationally determined contribution to be communicated to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. The Union Cabinet, chaired by the Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, has approved India's updated nationally determined contribution to be communicated to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. The updated nationally determined contribution seeks to enhance India's contributions towards achievement of the strengthening of global response to the threat of climate change, as agreed under the Paris Agreement. Such action will also help India usher in low-emissions growth pathways. It would protect the interests of the country and safeguard its future development needs based on the principles and provisions of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. India, at the 26th session of the Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change held in Glasgow, United Kingdom, expressed to intensify its climate action by presenting to the world 5 nectar elements, Panchamrit, of India's climate action. This update to India's existing nationally determined contribution translates the Panchamrit announced at Conference of the Parties 26 into enhanced climate targets. The update is also a step towards achieving India's long-term goal of reaching net zero by 2070. Earlier, India submitted its intended nationally determined contribution to United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change on 2 October 2015. The 2015 nationally determined contribution comprised 8 goals. 3 of these have quantitative targets up to 2030, namely, cumulative electric power installed capacity from non-fossil sources to reach 40%, reduce the emissions intensity of GDP by 33 to 35% compared to 2005 levels, and creation of additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent through additional forest and tree cover. As per the updated nationally determined contribution, India now stands committed to reduce emissions intensity of its GDP by 45% by 2030 from 2005 level and achieve about 50% cumulative electric power installed capacity from non-fossil fuel-based energy resources by 2030. Today's approval also takes forward the Honorable Prime Minister's vision of sustainable lifestyles and climate justice to protect the poor and vulnerable from adverse impacts of climate change. The updated nationally determined contribution reads to put forward and further propagate a healthy and sustainable way of living based on traditions and values of conservation and moderation, including through a mass movement for lifestyle for environment as a key to combating climate change. The decision on enhanced nationally determined contributions demonstrates India's commitment at the highest level for decoupling of economic growth from greenhouse gas emissions. India's updated nationally determined contribution has been prepared after carefully considering our national circumstances and the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities. India's updated nationally determined contribution also reaffirms our commitment to work towards a low-carbon emission pathway, while simultaneously endeavoring to achieve sustainable development goals. Recognizing that lifestyle has a big role in climate change, the Honorable Prime Minister of India, at Conference of the Parties 26, proposed a one-word movement to the global community. This one word is life, lifestyle for environment. The vision of life is to live a lifestyle that is in tune with our planet and does not harm it. India's updated nationally determined contribution also captures this citizen-centric approach to combat climate change. The updated nationally determined contribution also represents the framework for India's transition to cleaner energy for the period 2021 to 2030. The updated framework, together with many other initiatives of the government, including tax concessions and incentives such as production-linked incentive scheme for promotion of manufacturing and adoption of renewable energy, will provide an opportunity for enhancing India's manufacturing capabilities and enhancing exports. It will lead to an overall increase in green jobs such as in renewable energy, clean energy industries in automotive, manufacturing of low emissions products like electric vehicles and super efficient appliances, and innovative technologies such as green hydrogen, etc. India's updated nationally determined contribution will be implemented over the period 2021 to 2030 through programs and schemes of relevant ministries, departments, and with due support from states and union territories. The government has launched many schemes and programs to scale up India's actions on both adaptation and mitigation. Appropriate measures are being taken under these schemes and programs across many sectors, including water, agriculture, forest, energy and enterprise, sustainable mobility and housing, waste management, circular economy and resource efficiency, etc. As a result of the aforesaid measures, India has progressively continued decoupling of economic growth from greenhouse gas emissions. The net zero target by 2030 by Indian Railways alone will lead to a reduction of emissions by 60 million tons annually. Similarly, India's massive LED bulb campaign is reducing emissions by 40 million tons annually. India's climate actions have so far been largely financed from domestic resources. However, providing new and additional financial resources, as well as transfer of technology to address the global climate change challenge, are among the commitments and responsibilities of the developed countries under United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and the Paris Agreement. India will also require its due share from such international financial resources and technological support. India's nationally determined contribution do not bind it to any sector-specific mitigation obligation or action. India's goal is to reduce overall emission intensity and improve energy efficiency of its economy over time and at the same time protecting the vulnerable sectors of economy and segments of our society. Thanks for listening. Kindly like, subscribe and share.